almost forgot. So yes, so that is the introduction that you need to have at the back of your mind so that convincing becomes easy. Now, the first thing we are going to discuss is the question of land acquisition and the introduction to titles. Land acquisition and introduction to titles. Now, remember that you cannot discuss conveyancing without discussing ways of acquiring land, or generally acquisition of land. How do you acquire land? How do you acquire land? But before we get to the question of land acquisition, you need to understand this. The key legislations that are going to govern you when you are preparing for your conveyancing. Or if you start talking about conveyancing, what are some of the principles? What are some of the legislation that you need to make reference to for purposes of understanding and also having some knowledge moving forward? So the first one and the most important one is the Constitution of Kenya 2010. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 under Chapter 5 talks about the question to do with the land and environment. Land and environment. So very, very important. Like I've said, some of you in this class have never seen the Constitution. Hata zile za free zinapeana na chief hawajawahi ona, hata kushika hawajashika. So please get yourself a copy of the Constitution, the hard copy, if you can get one. If you can't get one, you can just go to your Kenya Law and download a copy of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Are you together? So that is the first one. So Chapter 5 talks about that from Article 60. Talks about the question to do with land and environment, and the same chapter that establishes the National Land Commission. So the National Land Commission is the one that is in charge of managing and administering public land on behalf of the government, that is the national government, and the county government. Are we together? So that is the NLC. So it gives the roles of the NLC under the Constitution, and also, of course, we know we have the NLC Act and everything else. So the first point you want to start from is Chapter 5 of the Constitution, that first gives categories of land. Okay, it gives categories of land, and then it creates the NLC and other miscellaneous provisions on land. So that is very, very important for you to understand. The next one is the Land Act of 2012. The Land Act of 2012 is also very important in as far as conveyancing is concerned. You want to understand what is the substantive law on everything when it comes to the Land Act. And then, of course, we have the Land Registration Act, that is the LRA of 2012 as well. And this act is the one that facilitates the question of registration of interest in land, all the way from Section 1 to Section 103 of that act. So that is the question of registration alone. We have a lot of acts of parliament that deal with land, but we're just mentioning the main one. The next one is the community land. Community land is very, very important. Again, 2016 Act that came in place to facilitate the registration and documentation regarding the community land. So also that is the act that deals with specifically the community land. The next one that we have is the Sectional Properties Act of 2020, which of course effectively repeals the Sectional Properties Act of 1987. Now this deals specifically with sectional properties. Okay, once we get to the question of sectional properties, we will explain what is the link between those two acts and why do we have sectional properties. So we will discuss that. So that also comes with a little bit of 3 or 4 amendments to the old one and new things that were introduced. Okay, so we shall talk about that. So also we have the RDA, which is an obvious act, that is Registration of Documents Act. This act is the one that facilitates the registration of documents that are affecting interest in land and any other transactions that are not land related. That is the RDA. Now let's talk about the mode of acquisition of land. Ways of acquiring land. Now, when you look at Section 7 of the Land Act, because that's where I want us to start from, and then we can break it down as we go. Section 7 of the Land Act now provides for ways of acquiring land. How do you acquire land? How do you acquire land? acquisition of land. So the first one is, of course, allocation. You can get land through allocation if the land has been allocated to you by the government. You can get land by allocation. The other way you can get land is through transfer. When somebody transfers land to you, that is a transfer. You can get that land by transfer. You can get land by transmissions. We have transfers and transmissions. Now, transfer are the voluntary transfers whereby I sell my land to you. And then the transmissions are the involuntary transfers where I'm saying that I died and you took my land, or I won the case, I bought, the property was auctioned, and then it came to you, or bankruptcy, or such like things, or the doctrine of escheat or bona vacation, adverse possession, and all that. So you can get land through the modes of transmissions. The other one is through compulsory acquisition of land. This is where the government acquires land from the citizens through the overall principle of eminent domain. We have settlement programs. So if the government is trying to settle a group of people that have been displaced either by the civil war or maybe post-election violence, then we are going to have the settlement programs. Now, that land that is the subject of the settlement will become part of those people's property through settlement programs. We have the normal land adjudication programs of the government that will always give land to the citizens. And then, of course, we have long-term leases. Of course, you know that if you have a long-term lease of more than 21 years, you are supposed to get a title to that property. So those are ways of getting title to land. Those are ways in which somebody can get title to land. Now, up to where I am, we are clear on few things. The first thing we are very clear on is what land is. At the same time, we are very clear on interest in land. We are also very clear on what is the legal framework looking like. Okay, what is the legal framework of conveyancing? What is it looking like? So the Constitution all the way to the RDA. So we are as clear on that as possible. So if you've not got anything up to where I am, the first thing you need to understand is that this is conveyancing, and conveyancing is the process of transferring an interest in land. Now, conveyancing comes from the word convey. When you're conveying something, you are relaying something or you are transferring something. Okay, so conveyancing. So we are conveying an interest in land. What are these interests in land? Freehold interest in land, leasehold interest in land, or a charge. Now, at any point in the question, which you are going to do in the November paper, ask yourself, what interest am I dealing with? That is the first thing you need to understand. Is this a question about charges, leases, or transfers, or all of them? Ask yourself that question, because if it is a charge, then you know how it is supposed to be dealt with if it is a charge. If it is a lease, again, your mind will recollect everything you know about leases. If it's about transfers, you know how to deal with. So that is an interest in land. Okay, those are interest in land. And then the next thing I've said is the modes of acquisition of land, modes of acquisition of land. Are you together? The modes of acquisition of land, which we've talked about, the question of transfers, the question of transmissions, allocations, compulsory acquisition of land. We have talked about settlement programs and all those. Those are ways of acquiring title to the property, including the long-term leases. Are we together? So we are there. Any question? Are we together? Tuko sawa? Hola.
Very much together.
Very much together. Okay, guys, like I've said all the time, and I'm going to say again, please.
We are together.
Yes, thank you. Please, please, please. If you are in this class and you are feeling like you're not understanding something, I don't know kama bado mnanipima. Mnanipima kwanza. napimana tu, tunasema huyu jamaa anakaaje. Tuache kupimana. Ask as many questions as possible. Trust me. There are things you need to understand now. Okay? Now. So if you don't understand them now as we are starting, even if you don't know what land is, just ask, what is land? And then we can explain to you what land is. If possible, we can give an example of what land is. But just make sure that when we start each and everything or each and every topic, you are with us. You don't lose us. Because if you are just there by saying all fine, all fine, all fine, and then you go to that exam room, you will know. Okay? You will know why a chicken does not have, I don't know, whatever the chicken doesn't have. So please, please, please ask questions. All right, sawa. So let me assume that everything is proper. So that is where we are. The next thing that also we need to understand, because people usually ignore it, are the categories of land. Categories of land. So the first one is public land. Now, public land is defined under the Constitution and is any land that is used for public purposes or any land that is held by either levels of government. Okay, this includes the sea, the lakes, the roads, the forest, all those, the national parks. Those are public properties, public land. Okay, so it is very important for you to understand that. The next thing that you need to understand is what you are calling the private land. Now, private land is the land that belongs to you and me. Okay, you and me. That is your private land. It is your land. Okay, and then now we have the community land, the land that is held in the name of the community or on behalf of the community as per the provisions of the community land as well as the provisions of the Constitution. So please start there. Now, once you know the categories of land, the next discussion therefore then becomes, how then do we conversion of land? There are two types of conversion in conveyancing that we are going to look at. The first type of conversion is the conversion of land. What is the conversion of land? This is conversion under Section 9, which says we are converting a category of land to another category. What are the three categories of land? Public land, private land, and community land. So we can convert public land into private, private into public, public into community, community into private. And together. So that is conversion of categories of land. Do not confuse that with the conversion of titles. Now, conversion of titles is different. That is why we are converting the RTAs and the RLAs and the GLAs into the LRAs. That is conversion of titles. So that if you have an RTA, we can convert that into an RLA. So if you don't understand what those things mean, I'm going to explain that in a heartbeat. Okay, so that is conversion. But the most important thing right now as I'm speaking is the conversion of categories of land. That you have a public land that you have in your, that you know. The public land can be converted to become a private land. That private land that you think is private to you, it can become a government land or a public land, okay, or a community land. Are you together? So that is conversion, and that is provided for under Section 9 of the Land Act. Okay, now, before we discuss anything to do with conversion of titles, which is a long discussion, I want us to talk about the history of titles. I've mentioned the RTA, I've mentioned the RDA, the GLA, I've mentioned the RLAs. So what are these? What do you think they are? So let us talk about the history of titles, because the history of titles is very, very important. And even in terms of understanding conversions, you need to understand the history of titles. So the first one, we are moving back all the way to the 1950s to 1963-65. So Kenya is colonized. Okay, Kenya is colonized by the British. And then before Kenya is colonized by the British, the British colonizes the Indians. So India is colonized, and then from India, they come straight to Africa, and then they get Kenya. So what happens during that period is that everything, the reception clause. What is the reception clause saying? Somebody tell me. Put up your hand. What is the reception clause and what does it say? If somebody stopped you on the way and they told you, hey, wakili, nasikia wewe ni wakili. What is the reception clause? Ama ni kudunga kisu sahi? Ni matanga tutakuja ama utajibu hiyo swali? Wakili, what is the reception clause? What does it say? And which provision, which legislation is this I'm making reference to? Ala, kwani niko nchi gani hii? Niko nchi ingine? Mawakili. Guys, say something, bana. The whole village is depending on you guys. Represent your village. Kamiri John, the entire Kiambu is seeing you.
So when you talk about the reception clause,
Mm-hmm.
I believe this is a clause that was introduced in 1887,
Mm-hmm.
whereby the colonizers realized that they are importing each and every legislation that is passed in Parliament in Britain. And this was found that it is unsustainable. And therefore, in I think on a particular date, in 1887, they decided that up to that level, there will be no any other legislation that will be passed in Britain that will be retained as it is in their colonies. And from there henceforth, only the legislations that will be made within the colonies that will be taken as the law, and therefore it was called the reception date with the reception clause.
Very, very well. So which country is Britain?
Kenya in particular.
Which country is which one is what is Britain? Britain is which country?
I mean Britain.
Which is which country? Which country is that?
Europe.
Europe.
I thought Britain is a country in Europe.
And which country is that in Europe? It is Britain in Europe. Mm-hmm. So which country is Britain?
Nimesimamia hapo.
All right. Thank you. You've explained that very sufficiently in terms of the Judicature Act, which of course which saw the at the effective date all clauses that are applicable in England will be applicable in Kenya, and of course the effect of that, why I was bringing India, is because of the ITPA. The ITPA. Okay, the ITPA is the Indian Transfer Properties Act, and that is what was uprooted and transferred to Kenya, and it stayed like that until 2012. Okay, so that happened, and we used to have a lot of legislations in terms of land. So every regime, every system used to have their own system of registration. So that is that, and then came the Acts of Parliament. Okay, came the Act of Parliament. Are you together? It came the Acts of Parliament. Now we used to have different types. Not that we used to have. Yes, we used to have, but there were different types of titles. We still have them up to date. The first one is an RTA title. The next one is an RLA title, and then the GLA title, and then the municipal titles. We still have them up to today. Now, what are the RTA titles? Now, in terms of these titles, it is just important for you. Nobody will ask you literally like, what are RTA titles? No, but you will see an RTA title when you see an RTA title, and you will know how to deal with RTA titles. So what are these RTA titles? Now, these titles are titles that were issued under the Registration of Titles Act. The Registration of Titles Act, that is the RTA, which was repealed in 2012. Now, the Registration of Titles Act is the one that was mandating the issuance of titles, which are called the RTA titles. So the first thing you want to know is what is the nature of these titles? What is the nature of these titles? And the due diligence around these titles and even the naming of these titles. So the first thing is the naming. How were these titles named? Now you have seen the land reference numbers, LRs. Almost every title you've interacted with is LR number this and that, LR1 stroke this, LR number this stroke that, LR or land reference number this, land reference number this. Now those LRs are RTA titles. They are RTA titles. LR number 131 stroke 1. That is an RTA titles. Okay. Sometimes you will find an LR with an IR or a CR. So LR number 134 stroke 6 IR or LR number 136 stroke 1 CR. Now IR means the inland registry. It means this title can only be found at the inland registry. The CR stands for the coastal registry. Now the coastal registry is the registry in Mombasa. Some of you have never gone to Mombasa. Wanapumua tu kama kawaida. Hawana pressure. Yeah? How do you feel? Hata Mombasa, the farthest ukishaenda ni Imara Daima on Mombasa Road. Find time, my friend. Find time and go down to the coast. Okay? Laura will host you and you will see the beach. So the the coastal registry is in Mombasa. Okay? That is coastal registry. So if you see a title called LR 131 stroke this CR, just know that that title is in Mombasa. The register is where? In Mombasa. Are you together? Now, that is the naming. So it is either in full, which is land reference number, this stroke this, or it is abbreviation, which is LR. Sometimes you will find that with an IR, which connotes that that title should be found at the inland registry, which is in Nairobi. Now, in Nairobi, there are two types of registries. There is the Nairobi District Registry, okay, Upper Hill. There's Nairobi District Registry, and then there's the Nairobi Principal Registry, which is the inland registry. Now, all the RTAs that are IRs, the inland registry, all the way from Busia border, okay, all the way from Busia to Machakos, Northeastern, Central, they are there at the principal registry. Okay, so that means that if you have an LR in Busia, you can do that search only at the principal registry in Nairobi. Are we together? That is LRs. So we have two registries, like I've said. We have the the principal registry, okay, and then we have the Nairobi District Registry, which is only specific for Nairobi District. So that is important for you to understand. So that is the naming of RTAs. How do you name it? Land reference number or LR. Sometimes it can have an IR at the end, which means it is an inland registry title, or it can have a CR at the end, which is a coastal registry. Now, you will not find a CR in Kakamega. You will not find a CR in Busia or a CR in Migori or somewhere in Northeastern. The CR's titles were titles that were issued along the coast, Lamu, Kilifi, Voi, Mombasa itself. You find CRs there because they are titles that are issued along the coast. Are you together? That is also very, very, very important. All right, so that is the first thing, the naming. So what is the nature of these titles? Now, whenever you see a CR, an IR or an LR, the RTA title, you should know that all these titles were leases. All these titles were leases. And therefore, if you are told that James is the proprietor of LR number this, just know that James is having a lease. Are you together? So that title, you treat it as a lease. So all RTA titles are leases. They are leases. They are leases and they've always been leases. Now, some of them have stopped existing, more so in Nairobi. Some of them have stopped existing, more so in Nairobi and around Murang'a, not Murang'a. Is it Murang'a that is closer to Nairobi or Kiambu? I don't know the map of that. But we have the conversion has been extended a little bit.
Of course,
Towards
Kiambu is the nearest.
Kiambu is the nearest. Is Kenol in Kiambu?
Yeah. No, Keno is in Moranga. Immediately past Dika, just Kabati. Now,
So which one is Kabati? And who named that place Kabati? Whichever. All right. So according to the report from the ministry, can you hear me? Can somebody hear me? Confirm?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All right. Perfect.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that
Yes.
some RTA titles have stopped existing. Why they are stopping existing? Because they have been converted to converted to the LRA titles. Okay, we are coming there. So RTA titles are leases, and you treat them as leases. Guys, knowing that a title is a lease will really help you deal with that title. Because if it is a lease, even the kind of approvals and consents that you will need are different. So don't just ignore it. That's why we always insist that you know the type of title that you are dealing with. So the question might tell you more by saying James is the proprietor of LR number this, which is a lease. Well and good, that is good. Sometimes they will fail to tell you it is a lease. Therefore, you need to identify for yourself whether it is a lease or not. So that is the nature of RTA titles. The last thing is the due diligence that is needed for the RTAs. If you have an RTA title, whether you are in Cabanas, Busia, Masai Mara, Narok, Turkana, you have to travel to Nairobi and do the search in Nairobi. Okay? You have to do the search in Nairobi because that is where the register for the RTA is, and Mombasa. So those two places. So you have to do the search in Nairobi or in Mombasa, depending on the title. There are only two places you can do the search. The next thing you know is that RTA titles are leases, and therefore you will need the consent and approvals of the NLC. Why? Because the NLC is the one that is in charge of issuing. Okay, it issues consents when it comes to the government properties, the leases. Now that is RTA titles. They're leases. That is how they're named, and that is how they exist. The next thing that you need to understand are the RLA titles. Now that is the one that your father is having. That is the one that your mom is having. That is the one that your grandmother or grandfather was having, or that is the one maybe you are having. Okay? You've seen people saying that I have a title deed. A title deed is a pedestrian language. Don't go to law school 4 years, pay thousands and thousands of shillings, go to the Kenya School of Law, pay $250,000 shillings, go to pupillage 6 months, hustle to get a job, get admitted, pay another 1,000 to be admitted, and then you call a title deed a title deed. You should be arrested. Okay? Don't waste time and then you call it a title deed. Have some class. Okay? Certificate of lease, certificate of title. Wewe ni wakili. Title deed waachia watu wa ushago tafadhali. It is called certificate of lease if it is a lease, certificate of title if it is a freehold. Tuko sawa? Mambo ya title deed nikikusikia lazima utasalimiwa. Sawa sawa. So that is title. So you've had title deeds that your father is saying that I have a title deed at home. I have a title deed under the mattress. That is a freehold title. And that title is an RLA title. Okay? An RLA title. Now, RLA, before I go to RLA title, there's something I've forgotten to mention about RTAs. Now, RTA were leases that were issued under the RTA Act. Now, these properties were intended for urbanization. Now, after the Brits left, okay, after the British left, of course, after colonization in 1963 all the way to 65, then land was remaining, okay? Land was remaining. And those that lived in the old days of Nairobi, you could realize Nairobi was not populated. And then Kenyans started giving back wholeheartedly to fulfill the earth. And then now we are overcrowded. Now land was just too much, okay? And the government was just giving land anyhowly, okay? Because the population was very low. So RTAs were specifically for urbanization and commercial spaces, and they were leases. That's why they were leases, so that the government can control urbanization. And that is why you will never find an RTA out of a municipality. Neither should you find an RLA within the municipality. Things happen, of course, corrupt politicians and everything else. You know those inquiries, the Ndungu reports. You will find that there are people that are having freehold properties in Upper Hill. A freehold property. People that are having freehold properties in the CBD. You're like, how did you get a freehold property in this place? You are not supposed to have a freehold property within the municipality. Why? Because of the need to control urbanization, the government did not extend anyone a freehold title within those areas. But of course, Kenyans are Kenyans. Anything is possible. Are you together? So RTAs were meant to be leases and for urbanization. Are you together? Now, aside from urbanization, the government, after independence, wanted to ensure that your parent and my parent, okay, your parent and my parent, or your grandfather and my grandfather and my grandmother were able to promote the economy of the country by agriculture, okay? And therefore, they let Kenyans take back the property that were initially held by the British. Now, while some of your grandfathers were struggling to get properties, some of your grandfathers were just drinking alcohol and listening to rumba. And now you're the one suffering. Okay? But during that window, the government allowed Kenyans to take back the properties and make sure that agriculture became. So if your father and your great-grandfather did not have any property, it is because while others were busy, struggling to get land properties in Westlands, Runda, Karen, your great-grandfather was busy inheriting women and drinking alcohol and listening to rumba. Okay? Very, very sad. But that is what it is. Now, RLA titles. These titles were issued under the Registered Land Act. The Registered Land Act. Now, these titles were named by the name of a place, stroke the name of a block or the name of a place. So you've seen titles being called Nairobi block, Kisumu block, Kisumu stroke Kakamega, Ngong stroke Karen, Rongai stroke Gataka, or block. So that naming system was an RLA naming system. Are you together? So these titles were named name of a place stroke a name of a place. Are we together? That is the naming system of RLAs. That is the naming system of RLAs. Are we together? So Nairobi block, Kisumu block, and then Nairobi block 2, could have Thika block that, Kiambu stroke Nyeri, Nyeri stroke whatever. So those that kind of naming. For RTAs, it was LR.R or land reference. For RLAs, they are now name of a place stroke a block or name of a place stroke name of another place. Okay, that is the naming. Number 2 is the nature of the titles. Now, what have I said? That when the government gave your great-grandfather this property, the instruction was just one, clear: go and farm, go and practice agriculture. So all RLAs were freeholds. All of them are freeholds, even up to today. They are freeholds. And they were meant for agriculture. And based on that, the government made sure, okay, the government made sure that an act of parliament was enacted immediately. That is the Land Control Act. Now that Land Control Act now created a board called the Land Control Board. That is the LCB. Now the LCB was in charge of giving consents when it comes to agricultural land. Now, which one was agricultural land? On the face of it, all RLAs were agricultural land. It doesn't matter whether you built a school on it. It is agricultural land. Okay? And then now there are those specific agricultural zones that are zoned for agriculture. Now, the LCB will always give consent for any freehold property. Why? Because haukupewa hiyo shamba ndio ikae tu hapo. It was meant for agriculture because the government realized that agriculture was a serious backbone to our economy. So that is why you are given the title deed. So whatever you're calling a title deed, that is a freehold title, that is an RLA. Okay? They were meant for agriculture, and that is why at any point you are dealing with a freehold property, you must seek the consent of the Land Control Board. Now, these titles were issued out of municipality. They were issued away from municipality because you don't expect people to start planting maize within the municipality. Are we together? So it is only that Kenyans have made things complicated, but the original order of things were very, very clear. Go till agriculture, have your freehold titles. It is free. You cannot lose it. But Kenyans started doing other things. But I've already said that you will be shocked that somebody somewhere is having a freehold property in Westlands. Somebody somewhere is having a freehold property somewhere in Upper Hill. That is very irregular because those properties were not meant to be freeholds. But yes, you can find that because somebody knows someone who knows a bigger person. That is the life. Now, lastly is the due diligence when it comes to the RLAs, the title deeds. The first one, of course, you need to make sure that searches are done at the district registries. So each and every district, kila mtu anajua district yao. Okay? Some of you claim they come from Nairobi and they don't come from Nairobi. Tunawajua. Nairobi district is not your district. Tafadhali, go and look for your district. Okay? So Nairobi district is for Maasais. Nowadays people from Rongai and people from Kiambu and Kenol think that they're the real Nairobians. And people who are lawyer in Kangemi, they think that the real Nairobians are the Maasais. Okay? So if you're not a Maasai, don't even say that mimi kwetu ni Nairobi. Shame on you. Tafuta kwenyu. Okay? So Nairobi district has got its own registry Thika, Kiambu, Machakos, Nyeri, Narok, everywhere that you go. Kirinyaga, there's a district there. So that district has a district registry. Kisumu, there's a district there. Western, there are districts there. So each and every person will have their own district. So that title you do the search at the district registry. RTS, what have I said? You go to only two places, the principal registry in Nairobi or Mombasa. But when it comes to the RLA titles, the title deeds that were issued from 63, then you do them at the district registry. And of course, you seek the consent of the LCB. For RTS, it is NLC. All leases, NLC. Okay? All freeholds, LCB. Why the LCB? Because that land that your father has now turned to be a church, that was supposed to be a plantation. Okay? That land that you built a school on, that is a plantation. So the government doesn't care. So that is what it is. It is what it is. So that is that. And then we have a very special type of title called the GLA titles. Now the GLA titles were Government Land Act. They were issued under the Government Lands Act. And these titles, guys, these titles were only given to the who's and the who's during the time, like Lord Delamere and the Kenyatta family and the Moi family. They're very large tracts of land. Now the government has done a good job in trying to kill the GLA titles because there were leases that were issued for 1,000 years. Okay, apart from myself, I don't know who else will be living to that long for 1,000 years. I don't know who else, but rarely people don't get to that age. Okay, people don't get to that age. So the government has said that it is impossible, it is unreasonable for you to expect somebody to have land for 1,000 years. That is like giving them a freehold property. That is over 1,000 generations or 100 generations or 10 generations, depending on how long your generation can live. So because of that, the government has deleted that entire, it has been phased out. But there are still pieces of land that are still GLA. Around Kiambu, of course, you know, the Kenyatta tracts of land, they're still under GLA. The first president, they still have GLA titles there. If you go to Naivasha, you circle around to Nakuru, the Delamere farms, those are still under the Government Lands Act. Okay, so those are GLA. The who's and the who's, they still have GLA titles, but the government has done away with that type of system. And nowadays, you're making sure that the highest amount of lease you can get is 99 years. Okay, if you live longer like me, you can get 99 years. If you renew your lease now, you can get 50 or 36. Anyway, we shall come to renewal and extension of leases way later. Now that is the GLA titles. Then we have the municipal titles. Now you guys lived in the ages of mayor. We used to have the mayor of Nairobi, the mayor of Kisumu, the mayor of Eldoret, the mayor of Nakuru. So during that, the county councils, okay, so they also used to have the power. Like the same way we have county governments right now, we have land that can be issued by the county government. Now, even in those ages, we used to have land that were issued by the municipalities. How do you name such types of titles? That of course is very simple. If it is land that is issued in Nairobi by the county government of Nairobi, it will be Nairobi municipality. If it is Eldoret, Eldoret municipality. Kakamega, Kakamega municipality. And you do understand that these properties were inherited by the counties. So the former municipalities were inherited by the counties, okay? So if it is Eldoret, the title will still remain the same thing, which is Eldoret municipality. Where do you get the consent for these properties? The municipal titles from the county commissioner. So you apply for the consent from the county commissioners. And then something happened in 2012. Something happened in 2012. What is that thing that happened in 2012? The Land Act of 2012, the Land Registration Act of 2012. Now, under Section 104 as well as 105 of the Land Registration Act of 2012, the RTA, the GLA, the RLA, the ITPA, all those were repealed. Why did the government repeal that? It is very important for you to understand that because it is going to help you as you move forward. Now, these systems of registration, like I've told you, that if it was a government land, the registration was done under the GLA. If it was a lease, registration was done under the RTA. If it was a freehold, the registration was done under the RLA. And this became so confusing. Okay, so the government wanted to come up with one system of registration. So if it is a lease, okay, if it is community land, if it is a freehold property, whatever it is, all of it, or if it is a sectional property, whatever it is registered under one system of registration. And that one system of registration is contained under the Land Registration Act of 2012. So this act repealed all the previous acts of parliament, like the RTA. What was the consequence of that? The consequence of that is that from 2012, we don't have any RTA title, any RLA title, any GLA title. Are you together? We don't have them, except those that were issued before 2012. Are you together? So what is the nature of the LRA titles? These are the new titles from 2012. What is the nature of these titles? The first one is that the naming system of these titles retained the naming system under the RLA. What was the naming system under the RLA? The naming system under the RLA was name of a place, Nairobi, stroke, Westlands, Nairobi, stroke, Kiambu, Rongai, stroke Kajiado, Nairobi, Block 1, Kajiado, Block 2. So that is the naming system under the RLA. Okay, so that has been retained. Okay, and that therefore means that all titles that are being issued after 2012, they have this naming system. Okay, name of a place, stroke a name of a block, or a name of a place. Okay, next thing is, what is the nature of the new titles? Now, the nature of the new titles is that they are both leases and freeholds. Before 2012, leases were named differently and freeholds were named differently. Right now, leases and freeholds are named the same way. So what will tell you it is a lease or not? The question will let you know. Whether it is a lease, you could see things like rent is payable, or James is the proprietor for this property for 99 years. You will see, you will know. Okay, you will know from the question that it is a lease or a freehold. However, you also need to understand that the RTA titles and the RLA titles that were issued before 2012, they are still existing. Now, the government has initiated a process called conversion of titles to convert RTA, RLA, GLA. All of them needs to be converted into LRA of 2012. So this one started in 2020 of December in Nairobi. Okay, we are in the 2024. They are not done with Nairobi yet. Almost done. So that means that the process of conversion could take another 10 years. Okay, or 20, so that we all phase out all the RTAs and the RLAs. We shall discuss the process of conversion of titles. Because you need to understand, hey, you need to understand that if somebody came to you today, let me ask this question. I'm coming to you and I'm telling you, I want to sell my land. Okay, and I want somebody to put up their hand. I'm selling my land. My land is LR number 1/2. I want to sell it and I want to put it out for an advert. I'm coming for your advice as an advocate. What are some of the things you are going to consider as you advise me? Hey, weka mikono juu. Ama nichague tu. Someone called Chelsea Cherotich. You must really love football. Chelsea Cherotich. Are you a Chelsea fan? Chelsea. Chelsea is not there. Let me see somebody. Put up your hand if you don't want me to pick you. Somebody call Kaluma Joffrey. Kaluma. What is the answer? Kaluma, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. What is the answer? Where do you want to put your to establish your law firm? Which city or which town?
Nairobi.
All right. So I come to your office in Nairobi and I tell you, Mr. Kaluma Wakili, I want to sell my land LR number 1/2. I am broke. I need some money. What are some of the things? What is the first question you're asking me? Or what is the first thing you'll advise me to do? Nairobi.
Of course, I'll know it's under lease,
Okay.
and we have to get consent from the NLC. Yeah, I think that's what I would know.
Okay. All right. That is Mr. Kaluma. Let us go to someone called Fernandez Melissa. Hey, leo mko na majina kali kali. Fernandez Melissa, how are you? Melissa Fernandez is not there. Kefa Omoi. Kefa Omoi. Guys, are you guys intentional?
Yeah.
All right, Kefa Omoi.
In addition to what Kaluma said, I think we will need to do a search in a registry in Nairobi, the principal registry.
Disregard everything Kaluma said and also disregard everything you've just said. Something I'm looking for. And I just... Rusini Timothy. Rusini. Is it Rusini? I hope I'm saying it right. Robert Wakiaga.
Well, the first thing I'll want to establish is when the registration took place, because the LR can both be a lease and a freehold. So
Well,
if it was registered before 2012, then yes.
Robert, should I send someone there to greet you? Naona unataka salamu sana. What are you saying? RTA can never be a lease. I mean, RTA can never be a lease or a freehold. RTAs, all of them are leases. Okay? The only thing that can be a lease or a freehold at the same time is an LRA, the new ones. But here I'm coming to you with an LR. Robert Wakiaga, an LR. Okay. What is the first thing you're going to consider? I've come to your office in Nairobi. Nyamoko Omogeni. Yes, sir.
Yes. Sorry, my phone was singing. I would want to determine where this land lies, whether it's inland or...
No, Wakiaga. No, Nyamoko. Nyamoko, no. No. Christine Maina. Guys,
I would consider if the land will be for commercial purpose.
Guys, you guys are overthinking. This is the exact result of overthinking. When you overthink, you're missing the answer. I've just talked about it right now. It's a very simple thing. Nimekuja kwako, niko na LR, nimebeba kwa mkono na kuambia wakili, ndio hii pesa nimeweka kwa meza, nataka hii shamba niuze. Wewe nisaidie kama wakili. Kabiru Joseph, nimekuja kwa ofisi yako. What is the first thing to consider? Joseph Kabiru.
Yes, sir. You're going to consider whether it is registered under the RTA.
Well, Kabiru Joseph, take a seat. Sit down, my friend. Let's get the answer from Wasike Hilda. Wasike, say it. Just say it.
You will advise your client to convert the title first because it's under the old regime.
That is very correct. Very, very correct. Like, guys, I'm telling you that right now in Nairobi, we are doing conversion of titles. There is no transaction that is going on without a conversion. So if I come to you with an LR and I'm in Nairobi, the first thing you need to understand is that land needs to be converted from an LR. And therefore, if it is not converted, the first thing you need to confirm if it has been listed for conversion. And you are going to get a question, just the one like the one in 2022. You are being told that somebody has come to you, they're trying to buy a land, this specific title, and then they've been told that that land cannot be, that title is not eligible for transfer. What should they do? Okay, so you need to first convert it. So properties in Nairobi right now, or even everywhere, you need to be very keen. The first aspect is you need to consider if it is an old title, the first consideration in the picture is conversion. Now, if it is an RTA, if it is an RLA, you need to know that it should be converted. Have together. So don't force conversion. Just read the question and see if the examiner is asking you how that how that title can be corrected, or how that irregularity can be corrected so that that title can be easily transferred. It is the question of conversion. So at the back of your mind, just know a client comes to me with an RTA, and that's why I'm insisting on you knowing what an RTA looks like and what an RLA looks like. And then if there are two things that you will be said the same way. One, you will be told your client is selling this property. Okay, your client is selling this property. This property is a commercial property. The client is selling the property to Edwin, who is intending to use it for agriculture. So what is the first thing you need to do for you to transfer the property, or to make sure that the transfer is going to be benefiting the other person? That is a change of user. When you're moving from one use to the other is a change of user. We shall see that coupled with a question or two or three from the past papers, so that you see how changes of users are done or are set. The other thing is you're being told that this title here, two things, guys. The first one is that Wasike is selling the title, which is LR number this. What should we do to regularize the problem? We need to convert the LR to become an updated title. Also, if it is in Nairobi, that is one thing. The second thing is that Wasike is the proprietor of a lease for 50 years given in 1970. Okay, 1970. And then she's selling it today. What is one thing you need to regularize first before you sell the title? That is the question to do with extension of leases. So first we are saying, if the lease is almost expiring, you need to extend it, and then you can sell it, or renew it and then you can sell it. If the title is old, you need to convert it before you sell it. If the use is changing, you need to change the user first before you sell it. Guys, please tell me that we are together. Guys, these things are obvious things. Obvious things. Mtu amekuja kwako anataka Probox, lakini wewe uko na pickup. Haiwezekani mpaka achange hiyo Probox yake ikuwe pickup ama pickup ikuwe Probox. It's the same thing. Okay. Are we guys together? Show me by a thumbs up that we are together. Good. So that closes the discussion in terms of titles. Titles. So I have told you that RTA titles are leases and they are LR number. LR number. So these LR numbers, they need to be converted. So if an exam question tells you that this, so not all the times the examiner will be interested in conversion. No. Not all the times the examiner will be interested in conversion. You just be told that this person is selling this property, advice on this and this and this. That is a normal question. But you can also be told that James has realized there's an irregularity with the title. What can he do to make sure that the title is regular? So there are three things they can do. They can extend it, they can renew, they can convert, and they can change the user. So if it is old, an old title under the old regime, you convert it to be a new one, and then you sell. If the lease is almost expiring, maybe it has 3 or 5 years to go, you have to renew the lease or extend the lease. You know the difference between extension and renewal. They're different things, but almost done the same way. So you renew the lease or you extend the lease. Okay? If this person is buying the property to use it for something different than it was being used, or from whatever it was being used, it was commercial, now you want to make it residential, you have to do what? Change the use. As simple as that. Tuko sawa, tuko ngangari. Kwa minajili ya hayo, kwa minajili chambilecho, Waluya, you know, Luyas are very good people. The only problem with Luyas, that's good. The only problem with Luyas is that Luyas think they know Swahili better than the real Swahilis. You know, Luyas speak Swahili as if it is their birthright to speak Swahili. And I've been asking myself, why do Luyas speak a lot of Swahilis anyway? Because I think next to Luyas, there are Luos there. Luos don't speak Swahili. And we have also people from Kisis, they don't speak good Swahili. We have the Turkanas there, they don't even speak Swahili at all. So where did lawyers get this Swahili they're speaking? And then I remember the 1901 railway, you know? So when the railway was being constructed from Mombasa to wherever it was headed, the lawyers ndo walikuwa watu wa mjengo kwa hiyo railway. And that is how they got to master the Swahili in 1901. So watu wetu wa Western Kakamega, ili mradi tuachie hapo. Omondi Rachel.
Yes, hi, I hope you can hear me. And I'd just like to apologize if my question is about to sound quite simple, but I don't know if I missed it when you mentioned this, but when you say change the user, could you please just explain what you mean by that?
Okay. Change of user simply means that kila shamba iko na kazi yake. Okay? Iko na kazi yake. Leo huwezi amua tu uende Uhuru Park na uanze kulima hapo. Uhuru Park si place ya kulima. Okay? Leo huwezi amua tu uende industrial area na uanze kujenga nyumba yako ya kuishi hapo. That is not a residential place. Okay? Wewe kama mtu wa Western Kenya, huwezi amua tu in the middle of Kileleshwa unajenga posho mill. You can't. Why? Each and every place has got its work. Okay? there are places that are zoned as agricultural. Ukienda Kiambu, there are places zoned majorly for agricultural. Ukienda industrial area, that land is zoned for industrial. If you come to the CBD, the property is commercial. If you go to Karen, the property is residential. Okay? Now, assuming that you buy land somewhere in Westland and it is commercial and you want to change the use from being commercial to residential, you don't just wake up and say, shamba ni yangu, najenga. Hapa ilikuwa shule, ama ilikuwa supermarket, sahii nataka ikue apartments za kurent. Cannot happen. Okay? So if the property, if you build a residential, remember, if you've walked even around Nairobi where they're building new houses, usually there's a board. There's a board they usually put there made at the gate, which indicates who is doing what. You get a permit before you construct. So when you're getting the permit, they will allow you to construct something. Okay? So if you're constructing a residential, utasema hapo, you're constructing a residential or a commercial. So when that property comes up, the government knows, or the county government knows, it is a supermarket, which is a commercial space, or it is a mall. 2 years down the line, if you change your mind, you don't want a mall anymore. Now you want to make that place become an apartment. You have to go back to the county government and tell them, look, I want to change the use of this land from being commercial to now being residential. So you don't just wake up. Everything has got its use. Even if it is your agricultural land, remember, the land is agricultural. In your village, it is agricultural. But you decide now you want to have a mall there. You don't just wake up and start building and saying, oh, si shamba ni yangu ama? No, shamba si yako. Okay? Lazima uende kwa serikali, the county government, and tell them that, hey, the county, this land was initially a mall, but sahi nataka ikue residential. So you have to change the use. That's what we're calling the change of user. Okay? Now, the title will say, or the register of the title will say the use of the property. Each and every land that is registered has a use. Okay? Each and every land registered has a use. So if the question tells you, James is the proprietor of this land, which is zoned for maybe commercial, you know that at the back of your mind it is commercial. And then you're being told, Peter wants to buy that land for residential, whatever. Then they must be regularized. You have to change the use from being commercial to being residential. And that means the change of user is one of the approvals you are going to get as you transfer the property. Yes, Rachel Omondi, tuko sawa?
We are good, thank you.
Yes, and that comes with something I already said, that shamba ni yako hatukatai, but remember that certain things you can't just wake up and do. If the government was supposed to allow anyone to construct anything the way they want, it will be very chaotic. Okay, it will be very, very chaotic. So for that to happen, you have to get approvals, and that's why the county government approvals in terms of constructions are very important, because zoning, a place is zoned for this, let it be that. So don't lose that point. Just make sure you have it at the back of your mind. Yes. Arekula, and then Sylvia. And Bunnies. Arekula, Sylvia.
My question is, if an RTA title has an LR playing without necessarily having a CR or an IR, how then do you tell the registry where you're supposed to do your due diligence?
Either of them. You can get it in Mombasa if you're in Mombasa. If you can get it in Nairobi if you're in Nairobi. If you're in Kitale, you can go to Mombasa. If you've never gone to Mombasa, you can use that as an excuse to go to the beach na enda kula mwembe tayari na urudi Kitale. If it doesn't have an IR or a CR, it means it can be found at any principal registry. Because how?
Okay, thank you.
But as a matter of just caution, if it is just an LR in Eldoret, you don't have any reason going to Mombasa. passing Nairobi going to Mombasa, unless you have other things in mind you want to go do at the beach. Okay. If it is an IR, an LR only in Voi, why are you coming back to Nairobi and you're close to Mombasa? So whichever is closer to you, you go there. You're going to find it there. Okay. All right. Banis Imani.
Okay, so kindly elaborate on the CR and IR when it comes to like the impact or the effect when it comes to like registration, the land registry. Yeah, I didn't quite get that.
CR, Coastal Registry. It means it has no impact. It just means that title is in the Coastal Registry. LR number 123/1 CR, Coastal Registry. Enda Mombasa. Utaipata huko, the register iko huko. Lakini kama ni IR like LR number 241/1 with an IR, hiyo shamba iko, the register iko kwa Inland Registry. Where is the Inland Registry? Upper Hill. Chukua Uber, shuka hapo Ngong Avenue 1, tembea kidogo, turn right, ingia ndani na ufanye search. Tuko sawa?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then Penina, lastly.
Yes, Jacktone, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is a simple request. On my side, I've understood what you have taught us, but I have never seen a title that has this IR, CR. Could you please be having, if you have a sample, could you display it for us, maybe for me to see, so that I can be able to get how it looks like?
Yes,
Especially
but
titles
you'll have to talk to me nicely. You have to talk to me nicely. You may attend. I have a lot of them. I'll show you. They are private documents. Of course, you don't have to. You don't need to. But I will find a way. Okay, this is what I'll do. I will find a way of showing you copies of each. I'll do a redacted copies of each RTA, RLA, and then the LRA, so that you can see how they look like. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Any question, guys? We are good? Somebody confirm?
Good evening, Jackson.
Good evening. Let me see. Sorry. Yes, Natwati Robert Kisangani, please proceed.
Yes. Good evening, Jackson. I joined your class late, but I just want to appreciate that we are on course and keep it up for what you are doing for us. I joined the class late because I was traveling. My apologies, but I will keep time in the next class.
All right. Welcome. Welcome. All right. Thank you. So, guys, like I've said, these titles are very simple. They're very simple. Like I've said, you will see an RTA with an LR or an IR or even a CR, or an LR with a CR, or an LR alone, an IR alone, a CR alone, or you'll find a title that has an LR with a CR, an LR with an IR. Okay, but all of them are issued under the RTA. So on top of that title, you will find the Registration of Titles Act. That was the one that it was issued under. So I'm trying to see if I can get you the one maybe for an IR, so that you guys can see what it's looking like. Let me see if I can download this one. There's so many of them, so you can. All right, right there. But this one was the reconstruction. This one was a reconstruction because of it's lost, so it was had to be reissued again. Can you see my screen?
It's called job.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Who is that holding on?
Yes, we can.
Thomas, Ian, what are you holding on? Mute your microphone. Thank you very much. So this is an actual RTA, but this was reissued. It was reissued because the main title got lost. Now they had to reissue it again in 2017, which is way after 2012. But you can see that it is still a title under the, let me try and highlight that, under the repealed RTA, whatever I'm trying to highlight there. And then the title number is IR number 751. Of that, let's go back, let's just go down and this. So you can see the RTA, that is the Registration of Titles Act, iko hapo, and then the number is IR number 7 that or 5 that. So this and that you can see it is an LR here with an IR. I don't know whether you can see this.
Yes. Yes.
Let me
No,
highlight for
we
you.
cannot see it.
Let me highlight for you the LR there. Can you see it now? Some of these titles are old titles. Very, very old titles that were issued in 1990s. You can see what I'm highlighting there.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, so it is an LR there with an IR. So LR number that with an IR of 7 and that. So it's this is how these titles look like. This is how these titles look like. So I will try and get some samples for you to understand, for you to see how they're supposed to look like. But RTAs will start like this. You see this on top there? The Registration of Titles Act, because they were issued under RTA. Registration of Titles Act is the RTA. Nivo tu. Nothing complicated. Okay. Let me highlight that for you there. Yes, so that is what we are saying. So that is an IR there, and then that is an LR. So that is what I'm saying. So I hope I've answered your question, and I hope you've answered. That was it Banis or someone? Okay. So that is a sample. So guys, is there any person having a question in as far as this is concerned? Because I want to move to something else quickly so that we can close. Nyamoko Omugeni.
Yes. Jacktone, while in class, Madam mentioned about sections of a title. Also, they talked of ownership section,
yes,
location section, parcel number section.
Yeah.
But I did not get all the sections. Would you mind quickly taking us through that so that I can be able to understand?
It's a very simple thing. It's a very simple thing that each and every title has got 3 major parts. Okay. We have the ownership, which indicates who is the owner of the title. The property section, which describes the property, and then the encumbrance if there's any. So, and that is also the parts of a register. So I will share with you. And even when you do the search, when you do a search, if you look at certificate of search, it will still tell you the ownership, the property, and the encumbrance. So there's nothing big about that. Each and every title must have those three things. Who is the owner? What is the property? Is there any encumbrance? Which is usually at the back. At the back of the title, you can see encumbrance. If there's a charge, you'll see that. But it is really nothing complicated. It's just that each and every title, each and every register must have the three parts. The ownership, which indicates this title is issued to Nyamoko. So Nyamoko is the owner. What is the title? The number of the title together with, what is the property section, which is the title, the area. If it is 10 acres, it will be indicated there. And then encumbrance section, if there's any encumbrance section of, if there's any encumbrance of the title, it will be indicated at the very last bit of it, normally at the back, to indicate it was charged, it was leased, whatever. That will be part of that, of the title. But it's fine. I will also, as I show you the titles, I will also be telling you or showing you the different sections that we have in the titles. Tuko sawa?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so guys, so I want us to talk about something else, and this is now the parties in conveyancing, because we are now moving straight into starting to talk about conveyancing proper. So we've just been talking about the introduction to conveyancing, which you must understand. Conveyancing is a process, it's a procedure. You must understand conveyancing. Okay, you must understand conveyancing. Are you together? So very, very important. So who are the parties in conveyancing? So remember, the parties will depend on the disposition. So we have three dispositions. Like I've said, we have three interests in land. The first interest in land is a freehold interest. Okay. And then we have a leasehold interest and a charge. What are the dispositions? How do we dispose these three things? So we have a transfer, which is a disposition, a lease, and then we have a charge. So in transfers, who are the parties? Okay, the parties are the vendor and the purchaser. The vendor and the purchaser. It is very, very important for you to understand the parties, because guys, you will get to an exam room and then they will be telling you, discuss the duties of James, and you're wondering who is this animal called James, because you can't tell whether it's vendor, purchaser, lessor. So these small things will make a huge difference when it comes to you answering the exam question. So don't worry again. So in terms of the transfers, we have the transferor, transferee, which is the same as the vendor and the purchaser. And then we have the question of leases. We have the landlord and the tenant, which is of course the lessor and the lessee. And then in terms of charges, we have the chargor and the chargee. The chargee is the bank or the financial or the person that is giving money. And then also we have the chargor, who is the person that is borrowing money and charging their property. Okay, that is the question to do with the parties. But also remember that we have other professionals in conveyancing, and you'll get a question that I want to build my house. I've come to you and I'm asking you, apart from advocates, what other professionals do you need to have or will you have to consult in a conveyancing transaction? Weka mikono juu. Mikono juu. Other professionals in conveyancing. Let us start with Isaiah Omondi. Isaiah?
Land surveyor.
Yes, we have the surveyors. So surveyors, of course, they do the work of the work of surveying. They will survey the property, and then they will give their report. The surveyors. Apart from surveyors, we have who? Simel. Simel. Next.
Valuers. Sorry.
Yes, you always put up your hand and you don't speak. Nilikuwa na kupima sana. Simel amesema valuers. Yes, valuers. Now this is a special message. Okay, it is an ad on behalf of all valuers in Kenya. We have public valuers and private valuers. Now, some of us or our female colleagues, some of them are in this class, they usually say that, oh, they want men with money. If you want a man with money, wachana na wakili. Wakili amesota. Look for a valuer. Valuers are the real deal. Okay? Wewe kama wakili, as a female lawyer, tafuta kavalua kamoja and thank me later. So in the entire conveyancing transaction, the richest are the valuers. Those guys have money like nonsense. So I'm giving you a free tip for the lady advocates in this class. Let your dream, nyota yako itafute network ya valuers. Yes, so valuers have a lot of money. And if you dealt with a valuer, you know how much valuers are paid. Mawakili hawana kitu, ni kelele tu na suti na Kiingereza kubwa kubwa. Mateso mpaka chini ya kitanda. So tafuta valuer kama bado kuna nafasi. So valuers, of course, you know, the role of a valuer in terms of transactions. When you're going to buy land in Karen and the property is valued at 100 million, you don't want to pay stamp duty on 100 million. You have to talk to the valuer very nicely. Okay, you have to talk to the valuer very nicely, and then the valuer will reduce the price for you and value the property at the purchase price. You have to pay something nice. Okay, and that money is directly to them. It doesn't go, valuation fee does not go to the government. It goes directly to the valuers. Sisi ukilipa wakili hiyo thao mbili yake, serikali inataka stamp duty hapo na VAT. So hata wakili atakula nini na kupea nini? Hakuna. Tafuta valuer tafadhali. Sawa sawa. Apart from valuers, who do we have? Joseph Kabiru. Next. So we have said we have surveyors, valuers. Who else? Kabiru Ayuko. Alan Nyongo. Is it Nyongo or Nyongesa? Yes. Alan Nyongesa. Proceed.
Okay, if you want to develop the land, you can also have the architects.
The architects, of course, yes. The architects, very, very important. After architects, Kinango, Yusra.
The real estate agents and the brokers.
Yes, the real estate agents. Of course, you need the agents, of course. Kivuti Doreen. Who else do you need?
We also have planners.
Yes, the physical planners. You need planners, of course, they plan for you and everything else. Yes, Nyapera. Somebody called meeting guest. Who is meeting guest?
Oh, sorry, she has said what I wanted to say.
Okay, the physical planners. Apa Kabiru Joseph, your hand is up. You're not saying something. Say something. Okay, Kabiru, meeting guest. Somebody called meeting guest. I don't know which guest this one is. Can you speak? Your hand is up. If your hand is up and you know I've not mentioned it, you're the meeting guest. Say something.
So, the quality and quantity surveyors.
Quality and quantity surveyors. What's your name? Your name is meeting guest in this call.
Sorry. Oh, my name is Thomas Ian.
Thomas Ian. I just saw you here with another name. You've just left. Okay, fine. So we have the quantity surveyors and the quality surveyors. Jane Ogalo, you want to add something?
The estates.
Estate agents have been said. All right, that has been said. Now, it is very important for you to understand. There's a question in 2022 where you're being told that Mr. and Mrs. Kamau have come to you. They want to construct their first family home. Somebody is in the chat there is saying auctioneers. Are you okay? Is everything okay at home? Tukutafute. Auctioneers are not professionals. Those guys are not professionals. Those guys are people that are demonic. Okay, they are possessed by the bad spirits. They are not professionals at all. If you've ever dealt with an auctioneers, you know very well those are very bad people. They will take your roof as you're sleeping. So auctioneers are not professionals that are needed in conveyancing transaction. No, we don't need registrars. Registrars are not professionals. Okay. You don't approach a registrar to help you with something. A registrar will just be there to register. Okay. All right. So those are professionals. So you'll be told every transaction has something. So if you're told that these people have bought land, they want now to build. Okay. Which people will you refer them? Which other professionals would you have them? Retaining. Don't say estate agents. They don't need agents. And what is the work of an agent? To find the buyers and the sellers. Okay. So they already have land. They're building their own house. They don't need agents. So look at those professionals and look at the transaction. Don't just mention them anyhowly. Okay. Don't just mention them anyhowly. So if a quantity surveyor is not needed, don't say quantity surveyor. If a valuer is not needed, don't say we need a valuer. Are we together? So again, make sure that your answer is right on the dot. Okay. The next thing that also you need to understand even before we start talking about powers of attorney is the question to do with the procedure, the overall conveyancing procedure. Okay, the overall conveyancing procedure. And this I'm saying because I want you to have it at the back of your mind, so that as we move forward, you will always remember it. Guys, conveyancing is divided into three: transfers, leases, and charges. The process of charging, leasing, and transferring is all the same, and conveyancing is a procedure. So I want you to know the procedure at the back of your mind, and then we will be filling it as we go. Okay? The first thing is the question of due diligence. Due diligence. So after due diligence, the next thing in the state, every time, guys, the first thing you're going to do is due diligence. Every time you are leasing, you are charging, you are transferring. Doesn't matter. You have to do due diligence, the first process. If you're told, advise James what they need to do until they get the title, the first thing they have to do is conduct their due diligence. And we shall talk about due diligence in the next class, next week, very intensively. And you know the dinner management case. The dinner management case, you know that case very well, by the Supreme Court of Kenya, which now restructures and redefines the question of due diligence. So we shall talk about that. The next thing that is supposed to happen after due diligence is drafting. Okay, you have to draft. So if it is a transfer, you draft a sale agreement. Okay, if it is a lease, you draft a lease agreement. If it is a charge, you draft the charge. So the next thing is drafting. Due diligence, drafting. After drafting, then we go to the process of, that is where we are going to have our completions. Call it completion. So this is the completion stage. Okay, the completion stage. So what goes into completion stage? We have the question of valuation. Okay, we have the question of valuation, and we have the question of payment of stamp duty, and then of course obtaining the approvals. So this is the stage where we do the valuation if it is needed for all items, for both transfers, leases, and charges. We will do valuation. This is the time we pay stamp duty. And then if there's any approval that is needed, we do it at the completion stage. Okay. And then after completion, we are now having the registration stage. The registration stage, which is now the final one. Okay. Registration. So under registration, we are registering the transfer. We are registering the lease. We are registering the charge. Okay, after registration of the transfer, we issue the title. After registration of the lease, we might also issue the the lease if it is needed, and then after the registration of the charge, that is when you'll wire the money if you're the bank or the lender. So that is the process of conveyancing. Everything like conveyancing, I've said, is the conveying of the title. Three things: conveyancing, conveyancer, and the conveyance. The conveyancing, what it is the process of transferring that interest. What interest are you transferring? I am transferring a freehold interest, a leasehold interest, or a charge at any time. Then the next thing is the conveyancer. Now the conveyancer is the person that practices conveyancing. You and I, our Kili. Okay? Some of you are already drafting sale agreements, masquerading, okay, and giving practicing advocates hard time. I don't know whether if you ever appear with a masquerading lawyer, anakucharaza na is masquerading. One day you will be in committee. Keep masquerading. So you know that you as a conveyancer and me as a conveyancer, we are the people that practice conveyancing. So the person that is in charge of the process is called the conveyancer. And then now we have the conveyance. The conveyance is the document that now conveys the title. Okay? A transfer is a conveyance. A lease is a conveyance. A charge is a conveyance. So if you're told, prepare the conveyance, don't start wondering what did you mean? Conveyance means the document. So just look at the question and ask yourself, which document do I need here? First, is it a lease? Yes, it is a lease. Then I will need a lease. Is it a charge? Yes, it is a charge. Or is it a transfer? So that is the process of conveyancing. Guys, up to there, I want to pause there. We have around 6 minutes. And I want us to take questions, all round questions on everything that you've not understood today. So in the next 1 minute, as I'm still speaking, go through the notes that you've written and ask questions on anything that is not making sense. In the next class, we are starting on the real conveyancing with powers of attorney. Powers of attorney, we go to professional undertakings, and then we move straight into the contracts for sale of land. That is the question to do with part 1 of conveyancing. Contracts for sale of land, we'll discuss it there. And then after that, we discuss the pre-contract, the contract stage, and then completion. And then we can do the duties of parties and their parties advocates. That is a reserve for the next class. So please, please, please make me happy by doing 2 things. Now, by asking questions, and later by reading ahead on the things that I've said. Again, I will always remind you, conveyancing is very easy. You guys can read and understand basic English. So there's no need of you to worry. Just read, get a group, discuss. These things sometimes they will sound like rocket science, and everybody has been there. I've been there myself. There are days that I couldn't understand. The days that I couldn't understand conveyancing. Those of you that went to school with me, there used to be a lecturer in my school called Kitiwa. Kitiwa used to have problems with me every day because I wasn't understanding these things. When you talk about easement, what are those? Is that even an English word? I couldn't understand these things. Okay? But and I understand now. So I can tell you for sure, you will understand also. Not today. Okay? You can't understand in one sitting. So give yourself time. Don't beat yourself. Give yourself time. Give yourself the pace and the grace to adapt. Pole too. For now, the best you can do is ask questions and questions and questions. So put up your hand. At least 20 questions. Is that too much to ask? I don't think so. At least 20. Okay. Omogeni Nyamoko. Swali.
Yes, Jacktone, thank you for the opportunity. under limitation of interest in land, you talked of easements, servitudes. Well, you know, my family was hovering around me, so I did not get them all right. Could you please help?
All right. It's a good thing to have family hovering around you. That's a blessing. You know, that's a very big blessing. I know people here wanalala tu peke yao kama panga, hawana mtu. So it's a blessing. So please take care of your family. So what I was saying is this. So we have a few interests that you need to understand, Nyamoko, that you have land. When you have land, the land will be registered in the name of Nyamoko Mogeni. Okay, that is your land. Okay, now under section 24 all the way to 26 of the Land Registration Act, there's one message that is being conveyed, that you as the registered proprietor, you as Nyamoko, you have all the interest in the world, and you can do whatever you want with that land to the exclusion of anyone. It means, in the simple terms, hakuna mtu atakushow vile utafanyia shamba yako. But there are limitations to your right. The first one is what is provided for under section 28, which provides for overriding interest. You as Nyamoko, you have a freehold interest in the property. But me, okay, me as somebody else, I will have an overriding interest over that property. I have an overriding interest. So this overriding interest, we have said, the first one are easements. What are easements? Now, easements include the right to access water, the right of way. So if your property is gate B, if you go to KSL, there's gate A, gate B, and gate C. So if I'm staying at gate A, Nyamoko, your property is gate B, but I want to go and drink alcohol in gate C. That is what gate C is for. Some of you that frequent gate C, we know what you're doing at gate C. Umesikia, hakuna library gate C. So ukienda gate C, tunajua unafanya nini huko. So if I want to go and open my brain in gate C, I have to use gate B. You as Nyamoko, you can't tell me that I can't use gate B. You can't deny me the right of way. Shamba ni yako hatukatai, lakini lazima unipe the right of way. Are you together? So that is what you're calling an easement. If water is at gate C, yes, that water that people keep drinking at gate C, I have to get the right to access that water. You can't deny me the right to get that water. Okay? If there's something called, we have something called the right to light. You can't build a 200-story building until that entire shadow is just overshadowing my property. I can't get light because Nyamoko has built a 200-story building. So my property is always under the shadow of Nyamoko's property. It can't happen. You can't build a bigger property to even block access to air. So those are easements. So in short, we are saying, shamba ni yako hatukatai, lakini you can always do something. So they are overriding interest in it. The other one is a lease. Short-term leases are also overriding interest. How? I'll give you an example. If Nyamoko today, you are an investor, you're investing in real estate. You go to Thika town, you find an entire whole apartment with 40 units. You want to buy the entire property. You become the new owner, the new landlord. You cannot go to these people, these tenants, and tell them that you guys, you need to leave because I bought this property. No, because the leases that are existing will move with the title. Shamba ni yako hatukatai, umenunua, lakini you cannot evict the existing tenants. That is a short-term lease, will move with the title. So ukinunua hiyo shamba, sisi tutaenda na wewe kama new landlord, lakini you cannot evict us. Okay? We also have things to do with what we're calling the covenants, restrictive covenants. Now these covenants, we are simply saying that, look here, okay, you bought land in Karen. Karen is zoned majorly for quiet and peaceful. You know, quiet and peaceful enjoyment. You know, when you live in Karen, you are living the exact life that has been predicted under Section 65 of the Land Act, that the landlord will ensure quiet and peaceful enjoyment of the property. When you're a tenant in Karen, you are enjoying that. When you're in Rongai, there's no quiet and peaceful enjoyment. Kila siku ni vita. Okay? So, if you buy property in Karen, then you cannot just come and say, because it is zoned for agriculture, it's zoned for residential, you cannot say, I'm going to build my school here or I'm building my industries here. No, the property is yours, but you can't build certain things there. So it restricts, it limits your right. Or for instance, if you go to Karen, they normally control, even other residential places, they control how many stories your building can be. Okay? So if it is, you can build a maximum of 2 floors, then that is what shamba ni yako hatukatai, lakini uweze jenga more than 3 floors. That is a restrictive covenant. Are we together? So that is exactly what we're saying. That is exactly what we are saying. Are we together? So it's just that. It's as simple as such. It's as simple as such. So those are some of the things that limit your right. Okay, way leaves, for instance, another limitation. A way leave. Shamba ni yako, lakini electricity line must pass through that place. Shamba ni yako, lakini a water pipe must go through your land. Shamba ni yako, lakini telecommunication lines must pass. So the government must come and pass through your land so that they can offer services. You cannot say that this land is mine. I don't want to see any electricity wire passing through my land. It can't happen. Okay? Because there's a way leave that will limit or restrict your right to the property. Tuko sawa Nyamboko?
Thank you, Jacktone.
All right. Eliud Makulo Oduor.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, sir.
First of all, it's a good work you're doing. I have 2 questions. Number one, you talked about bona fide purchaser. Are we still going back, or the discussion around it is done? Is there a follow-up on that some other time on that? Then second, I'll follow up on what Omogeni was asking on the discussion you just had. What if the owner of this piece of land and getting for some reason this government to maybe put structures, maybe the roads, the public entity in my land. If I object, is there a recourse, or is subject to what they come up with, that they must put up this structure?
It depends. It depends. Okay. So the first question that you've answered is bona fide purchaser without value. We'll discuss it when you start discussing the question of due diligence. Where wewe umenunua tu shamba. Wa Kenya. Kenyans are crazy people. I've never seen crazy people like Kenyans. You know, Kenyans will buy land on Facebook. Seriously, just land, a very nice piece of land. Some guy on Facebook will say, oh, this land is just going for 20,000 shillings. Piece of land, title is ready. A Kenyan will look at that land on Facebook and say, wow. And then they will pay. And then they'll be conned like that. And they don't even learn. You know, Kenyans are very easy to cheat. So based on that, when we start doing due diligence, we will discuss those aspects and also discuss the question of who is a bona fide purchaser for value without notice. Ni wewe ulinunua shamba Facebook na hukuwa unajua hiyo shamba ni ya mtu mwingine. So that is, we will discuss it in the next class when we discuss the question of due diligence. As you do that, start reading the case of the Dina management case. Dina management case, which was a last year's case by the Supreme Court of Kenya on what is the extent of due diligence you need to do. Next question you've said is, are you supposed to be paid? Of course, yes. Now remember, like even compulsory acquisition, which is also a limitation of your right, there are measures the government puts in place so that you be paid. Even on way leaves, you will be paid. So they will say, and if you've seen this before, if for instance an electricity pole is passing through your land, they normally calculate the area covered by that by that pole, and they pay you. If it is a water pipe, normally it depends. Okay, they will calculate what is the area covered, and then they will pay you by, they might say per every square centimeter it is 100 shillings. So they'll just know how many centimeters has been covered by this electricity line or water pipe, and then they pay for that. But if they acquire your land entirely, of course, there's also compensation. They will pay you for getting your land. So that works. In certain instances, they work. For easements, they don't pay you. When you create a right of way, they don't pay you. They can't pay you to use your land as a right of way, because it is just equity that nobody should pay for way, because now that will be crazy. What if you don't have money? Because life is hard. Will you be flying to your place because nobody has allowed you to use the land? So it depends. Payment, there's certain times that the government will pay. On way leaves and compulsory acquisition, you will be paid. On other limitations, there's no payment. Tuko sawa?
Okay, thank you.
All right. Any question, guys? Anything that is bothering you in as far as conveyancing is concerned? Please, please, please. I am begging you. Tell me. Kefa Omoi.
Yes, Madam, just if you can shed more light on what you call rights alien solo.
The rights in alieno solo are just exactly what I've just explained, but they are extensive. Right in alieno solo, if you translate it, it means the right in someone else's land. Okay, they're just limitations of. So if I have a piece of property, you can have some rights in alieno solo over my land. So right in alieno solo simply means the right that a third party will have over my land. So the first one is restraints on dispositions. The first right in alieno solo is restraint on disposition. It means you as Kefa Omoi, you can come to my land and stop me from selling my land. How? You can register a caution, you can register a restriction or inhibition. Now that right that you have to stop me from selling my own land or from leasing my own land, it is called a right in alieno solo. And the example is restraint on disposition. The next one is an easement. Okay? An easement is a right in alieno solo because an easement gives you right as Omoi Kefa to access my land. So it's a right on my land, though this land is not yours, but an easement gives you the right over my land. Restrictive covenants. If I am your neighbor, if we are staying somewhere, assuming we are staying in Kajiado, you are my neighbor in Kajiado or Rongai or anywhere, there are certain things you can't do on your land. Okay? You can't decide that now you want to build 200-story building. You can't. You'll affect me as your neighbor. And therefore, that is a restrictive covenant. Okay? You can't do certain things on your property. So that right that I have to tell you that Omoi, shamba ni yako lakini usijenge kushinda hii number of laws. That is a right in alieno solo. The other ones are profits. Profits like I have the right to come to your land to hunt, to collect water, collect some fruits, to graze. Those are profits. So those are rights in alieno solo. Simply the right yenye uko nayo kwa shamba ya mtu mwingine. That is what you're calling a right in alieno solo. Where is it coming from? It is coming from the principle of registration. It is an exception to the rule of registration. What is the rule of registration? The rule of registration is mwenye amekuwa registered kama mwenye shamba. If you are registered as the owner of the property, that registration will give you absolute and unlimited rights over any other person. However, the exception to that rule is the right in alieno solo, including Section 28, which are the overriding interest. Tuko sawa?
Thank you, Mwalimu.
All right, Omwenga, next.
I was asking what is a charge clause?
The charging clause is a charge is a clause in a charge. So if you draft a charge, that charge will have clauses. We'll see that when you get to charges though. When you draft a charge, one of the clauses you're going to have in a charge, the same way you have the name clause, consideration clause, termination clause, you'll have the charging clause. The charging clause is the one that says that now, okay, now this property has been charged. Okay, is a charging clause, is a clause that now charges the property. Okay, we will see one when you get to charges. Charges is our third discussion after leases and after transfer. Tuko sawa?
Thank you.
All right, Jennifer, Tianga, and then Alan Nyongesa.
Mine is on restrictive covenants. I think I understand what it entails, but I think my question would be, what is the, so to speak, the legal framework behind it? Because in my thinking, this is my land, and my rights to enjoy this piece of land. So what is the legal backing? So if I decided, okay, maybe it's current as you're saying, and I decide, okay, I want to put up a high-rise building. If I decide to do that, what recourse do they have? Is it what backing of the law do they have?
Zoning laws. We have zoning laws in each and every county. There's a legal backing. There's zoning regulations. If a place has been zoned for agriculture, it's just agriculture. If a place has been zoned as industrial area, huwezi enda industrial area na useme sasa mimi hapa nataka nijenge nyumba yangu ya kuishi na watoto wangu. No, that is crazy. It is not zoned for residential. If you go to Karen or other places that have been zoned for residential, you can't go and do some commercial. You can't do commercial. So normally these restrictive covenants are backed by the zoning rule. Each and every county has got its zoning rules. For instance, if you go to Kajiado people are mostly pastoralists. So there are places that are zoned for grazing. You only graze there. You can't go and build your school there. So their zoning, each and every county has got their zoning rules and their zoning regulations. So like Nairobi, you see now, Mr. Dimples has already ensured that now you can exceed the number of floors in places like Kilimani, Kileleshwa. You can build as many floors as you want. So if you have another governor that comes in place, they will remove the zoning clause, or they will make it restrictive. So it's different. It's different. Are you together? It's but the legal backing is the zoning regulations. The zoning regulations because of order. So just imagine. Okay, just imagine that you could do anything you want. Okay, if you're coming from Karen down there, unasikia posho mill za Waluya inagonga huko, unakuja industrial area hapo, kuna kanisa inachapa hapo, unatembea kidogo kidogo, kuna maninia. It is crazy. If you are supposed to find, assuming you're supposed to find schools, or you come right there at Uhuru Park or hapo Moi Avenue, kuna mtu akona shamba yake hapo anapanda mahindi hapo. It is crazy. So because of that, the government inapanga kazi, kazi lazima tupange. So you make sure that kama ni agriculture itoke nje ya town, kama ni kitu ya residential pia isonge huku nyuma kidogo, and then CBD ibaki tu ya commercial. Ukiwa hapo Kenyatta Avenue, watu wanalima mashamba, wengine wanafanya biashara, wengine wako shule, wengine wanalala. It's crazy. It doesn't make sense. So that is the reason why we have zoning rules. Tuko sawa?
Sawa.
Okay. Wakiaga, Robert.
Yes, Mwalimu. Would we be right to say that rights in Alino Solo are overriding interests?
No. They're not overriding interest, but overriding interests are also rights in Alino Solo. But they're in the same class. All of them are restrictives. Overriding interests are also restrict. They do the same thing really, but overriding interests are specifically defined under Section 98. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, guys. So I want to hang the boots for now there, because of time. We are 48. No, we have 18 minutes past the time that we agreed. I want you guys to rest. It's a Thursday. It's a Thursday. You need guys to rest. Some of you want to sleep for 9 hours. We need to give them time. So please read everything we've discussed. You can't get everything now, but you can go back